Imagine you're driving down a deserted Florida back road. Suddenly your radio begins to hiss with static and the air inside your car turns bone-chilling cold, even though the dashboard says it's 90 degrees outside. You glance in the rearview mirror, and for a split second you see someone sitting in your back seat. But when you whip your head around, the seat is empty. This isn't a scene from a horror movie. Over the last 2 weeks, specifically between January 1st and January 14th, 2026, the small village of Cassadaga has transformed from a spiritual retreat into the epicenter of an unprecedented paranormal surge that has local authorities scrambling for answers. What you're about to hear are real accounts pulled from police blotters and testimonies from residents who at this very moment are locking themselves in their homes, terrified of what the sun hides beneath the shadows of those century-old trees. Forget what you thought you knew about friendly ghosts. Whatever woke up in Cassadaga in these first days of 2026 as weight has a voice, and based on the recent marks left on the skin of several victims, it has claws. Stay with me for the next few minutes, because the Florida you know just gave way to a living nightmare. The new year in Cassadaga began with a deathly silence that didn't last long. On January 3rd, 2026, a family of tourists from Miami filed a formal complaint after something invaded their rental. They described a dense mass of shadow that didn't just move across the walls but exerted physical pressure. The father reported feeling invisible hands tightening around his throat while he tried to scream. Hallway security cameras captured the exact moment the room's door was ripped off its hinges from the inside out, with no one standing near it. On January 6th, an even more disturbing incident occurred at the old cemetery bordering the village. A groundskeeper with 20 years on the job found the site in total chaos. It wasn't human vandalism. The headstones weren't smashed, but rather pressed deep into the soil as if something immense had walked over them. Most strangely, despite the Florida heat, the ground around the graves was covered in a thick, solid white frost. The groundskeeper quit that same day, claiming the voices coming from the earth weren't human anymore, but something that never was. Just 3 days later, on January 9th, a group of independent investigators used thermal drones to fly over the Spirit Lane area at 3 a.m. What they captured is chilling. The footage shows dozens of human-like shapes with intense body heat standing motionless in the yards of private homes. The problem, the investigators looked with their own eyes. There was no one there. The thermal cameras detected physical heat and presence where human eyes saw only empty air. The video, which briefly circulated on tech forums, shows these figures turning their heads simultaneously toward the drone before the signal was cut by violent magnetic interference. On the night of January 11th, the sound system of one of the village's spiritualist churches turned on by itself at 3:15 a.m., blasting an extremely low-frequency hum that shattered the windows of 3 neighboring houses. Residents who rushed into the streets described an instant wave of nausea and disorientation. One man claimed he saw a child in hospital gowns walking barefoot down the road, but when he tried to help, the child dissolved into a swarm of black insects that vanished into the trees in seconds. A delivery driver passing through the area on January 13th, just yesterday, brought a new level of horror. He claims his GPS began repeating a phrase in an unknown language, and the screen showed a map that didn't match Cassadaga, but rather a place in ruins. When he tried to reverse his car, he felt the entire vehicle being lifted off the ground. Forensic inspection later found circular pressure marks on the car's chassis, suggesting a massive mechanical force tried to hoist the car with the driver still inside. The resident mediums are in a state of forced retreat. One of them, in a leaked audio from a private message group on January 14th, described that the channel we use to speak to the afterlife has been hijacked. According to this report, it's no longer loved ones responding to calls, but opportunistic and hungry entities that took advantage of an energetic breach in early 2026 to manifest physically. They warned that the energy in Cassadaga is now predatory and that any attempted contact could be fatal. The Cassadaga Hotel, the focal point of the town's mystique, has become the stage for a phenomenon science cannot explain. On January 10th, the water from every faucet on the second floor ran blood red with an unbearable metallic stench. Rapid tests by a guest who is a chemist confirmed the presence of hemoglobin, but not of any known human or animal origin. The hotel closed the floor for maintenance, but those passing by at night swear they hear the sound of fingernails scratching the glass from inside the empty rooms. Last Monday, a state highway patrolman reported finding a group of deer dead at the entrance of the village. What terrified him wasn't the death of the animals, but the fact that they were all standing upright as if frozen in time with no visible wounds but eyes that were completely white as if their very essence had been drained in a single instant. Environmental police removed the carcasses, but the initial report lists fulminant systemic shock as the cause of death, something extremely rare in so many animals at once. Technology seems to be the greatest enemy of those trying to record the events of January 2026. Professional photographers report that their lenses are cracking on their own when focusing on Cassadaga's old buildings. A videographer filming for YouTube on January 8th reported that upon reviewing his footage, all interview audio had been replaced by static. When slowed down, the static revealed the names of people who died in the town decades ago. The precision of the details is too terrifying to be a simple technical glitch. The tension among residents is visible. On January 12th, the shelves of the small local market were emptied not because of a storm, but because people are terrified to leave their homes after dark. Reports of shadow people standing in hallways and kitchen objects being hurled with violence have become the new normal. What used to be a peaceful coexistence with the spiritual has turned into a war of nerves where the living are clearly outnumbered and outmatched physically. Investigators suggest that Cassadaga's soil, rich in specific minerals, might be acting as a battery for these entities. With the recent solar storms of early 2026, the magnetic charge of the region may have hit a critical point, allowing what was once just energy to become physical mass. This would explain why people are being touched, pushed, and even injured. We are witnessing an evolution of the paranormal, where the ghost stops being a memory and becomes an active invader. What is happening in Cassadaga right now, at this very moment in January 2026, is a warning to the rest of the world. The barriers we believe are solid are actually fragile. If an entire town can be overtaken by phenomena that defy physics and biology in just 15 days, how safe are we in our own homes? The reports keep coming in every hour, and the general feeling is that the worst is yet to come, as if the village is being prepared for an even larger, darker event. Don't let the Florida sun fool you. In Cassadaga, the day is just an agonizing wait for the night, when the rules of reality cease to exist. What began as a curiosity for mediums has become an invisible battlefield where the trophy is the sanity of those who dare to stay. The authorities may try to hush it up, and skeptics may try to ignore it, but the marks on the walls and the voices recorded in January 2026 are undeniable proof that something terrible has decided it's time to come home. We conclude this report with a warning. Cassadaga is no longer a place for amateurs or the curious. Whatever resides there doesn't want your attention. It wants your energy. The shadows are moving independently and the air is getting heavier by the minute. If you value your peace, keep your distance. What woke up in those Victorian streets in these last 2 weeks is just the beginning of a story that many of us woe and live to see the end of. The veil has fallen, and what's on the other side is anything but friendly. This is the real state of Florida in early 2026. If you felt the impact of this information and want to keep following the developments of these real macabre cases, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. The world is changing, and the supernatural is knocking at our door. Comment below, do you believe these physical manifestations in January are a sign of something bigger? Would you have the courage to visit Cassadaga today, knowing what's happening there? Share your thoughts and beware of what you hear in the silence of the night.